above the entire universe. We salute him again and again. We are now back to reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam, book number 8. We are starting to the chapter number 9, when the story comes how the Asuras were deprived of the nectar which has come out of the churning of the ocean. Last time we read that Baruni appeared last in the liquor in her hand in the form of a handsome girl. And then on the Devas and Asuras churning the ocean further in the quest of Amrita, the immortal drink, there arose from the sea a person, a man, with unique and astounding form. And his hands are long and stout, etc. In his arm, decorated with bracelets, etc., he carried the pot of Amrita, the nectar. So he was carrying the pot of nectar, which everyone is waiting for that. And he was carrying, his name was Dhanvantari. Is an incarnation of a part of Vishnu, who is very much known for the promulgation of the Ayurveda, the science of health. And he is entitled to share the sacrificial offerings. Seeing him emerge, the Asuras then what happened? Took away from him all of a sudden the pot he was carrying, the pot of nectar, Amrita. And then when the Asuras thus took away, the gods then carried out the vessel. The Devas, the gods, they become distressed. And they all went to take refuge under the Lord Hari. And seeing the forlorn condition of the gods, the Lord then granted their prayers and said, "Don't worry, I will, by my Maya, shall achieve your end without anyone knowing about it." So the Lord played the trick. Meanwhile, there arose a quarrel among the Asuras. Who will first drink the nectar? Because they are holding the nectar pot. But instead of drinking, they started fighting who gets first. So in such one, some of them said that I shall have it first, and not you. And they began to quarrel among themselves. And ultimately what happened? The weaker among them, then they got into a trick, and they asked that they are very, like a gentleman, they argued that the jealous of the stronger ones, they are holding the pots, and they remonstrate saying, the Devas, whose labor in the enterprise is equal to ours, are also entitled to an equal share of the Amrita. So we should have 50-50. Just as the master in the sacrifice, in some other jaggas, it is done dual reward. Then the benefit comes from both, because we equally were responsible for bringing this nectar. Now, while the matter stood thus, all-powerful Mahavishnu, the Lord, with the master of the art of devising means to achieving the end, however difficult, the Lord Narayana, Mahavishnu, assumed the form of a woman. So wonderful that it defies all description. And then she looked so, complexion was very color like that of extremely attractive blue color, limbs was handsome, cheeks were shining, high nose, all this description of a perfect woman. Her abdomen in the contrast seemed very thin, etc., etc. Luxurious braids were decorated with blooming jasmine wreaths, while necklace adorned her handsome neck, etc., etc. So that motherly form was very charming. She appeared, and by her fragrant glances, accompanied by the movements of her brows, caused her bashful smile, she roused gusts of passion in the minds of the Asuras. So Now God appeared before them as Mohini, and that divine form of mother to delude all these asuras from their goal. Now we read from the ninth chapter where it starts the story of the Mohini, and the Sukadev describes. Sukadev describes Mohini accepted as a distributor. Her appearance and overwhelmed the minds of the asuras, and they entrusted ultimately the responsibility of distributing the nectar, give her the responsibility to distribute the nectar, the gods and the asuras. Instead of fighting themselves, they are charmed with the beauty of this Mohini Devi and gave her the right to share so that it is equally shared. Now, this is Shukadeva said, this is chapter 9, we start today, book number 8, and this is verse number 1. 8, 9, 1. While, Shukadev said, while the Asuras, abandoning all ties of friendship and adopting the ways of robbers, because they robbed away the nectar pot itself, were getting engaged in a mutual wrangle for wresting the vessel of Amrita, they saw this handsome maiden approaching them. So there Asuras, so second verse says, agitated by lust at her sight, the Asuras rushed towards her, exclaiming, ah, what a beauty, what a complexion, what a blooming youth. And they addressed her, saying, oh, lotus eyed beauty, tell us who are you, whence you come, and why, whose daughter are you, O loss of handsome thighs, your charms seem to charm our heart by excitement. We know for certain that you are still a maiden, untouched by anyone from among the Devas, Asuras, Siddhas, Gandharvas, Charanas, or the worldly lords, not to speak of man. So you are so beautiful, you are very special. Who are you? O girl of attractive eyes, is it that the merciful Creator has sent you here to enthrall the minds and senses of all beings? And then went on praising her. Oh, slender waisted beauty, all of us who are mutually related have now become bitter enemies because of the competition to get possession of the common object. So settle the quarrel and bring peace among us. So the Asuras then requested that beautiful lady, her name is Mahini. Mahini means who one who deludes, to takes away our right understanding. Moho, delusion comes Mohini, who creates the sense of delusion in us. So this, so they were beautiful. They said the Asuras now said that please settle that quarrel and bring peace among us. All of us, we are mutually related. We are all Asuras, the same family, have now become bitter. We are fighting among our own self because of a competition to get possession of a common object, which is their nectar. So you are the central figure, so we trust on you. You please distribute this nectar amongst us. We are all the descendants of Kashyapa and therefore brothers. Kashyap Rishi, we are all children of Kashyap Rishi. So we are all our brothers. We have the same parent. We have worked alike. So gods and asuras, we are all worked alike for charting the ocean and getting Amrita. Now be pleased to divide this Amrita among us in a way that would look just and avoid later disputes. So people cannot fight again in the future. So you please take the responsibility of distributing our Amrita. Now, verse number 8. On being thus requested, the Lord Hori who had assumed this maiden form, this Mohini form, the Lord Hori himself, Vishnu, Mahavishnu, has taken this form to delude the Asuras because their mind will be passionately running for that beauty. So the Lord Hori, who had assumed the maiden form, replied. What he replied? As follows. And casting bewitching glances from the corner of the lovely eyes. So the Lord said, O descendants of Kassapa, so you are all the child of Kassapa. O descendants of Kassapa, how is it that you approach me putting so much trust in one who is but a harlot soliciting men? So I am a lustful lady, and how you are so unconditionally approaching me and trusting me to distribute the nectar among you, the asuras, and the gods. Wise men never trust wanton woman. So to say that don't trust me, I may do something wrong. Why are you so much trustful to me? Because they are all charmed by the beauty. Sense attraction makes their mind complex, and they give away that pot of nectar at the hand of that woman. So it is said no lasting relationship can be forged with a woman who are ever in quest of a new sex experiences and whose wolves that are ever hungry. So this is saying that why are you? I am a woman, and you are gods and demons, asuras. Why are you trusting me to distribute this amrita amongst yourselves? Eh? So Sri Shukadeva said, their faith in her being reinforced by these teasing words. So these are teasing words the Mohini expressed to the assemblage of that Asuras and said, why are you trusting me, that woman who is a harlot? So does anyone give any responsibility of such important issue to a harlot like me? But Sukadev said, this type of statement aroused in them much more trust. So their faith in her, the Mohini, being reinforced by these testing words, the Asuras then laughed as a token of their deep confidence. They laughed, they smiled, and said, oh, that means we have deep confidence in you, in her, and handed over the Amrita in her hand. So the Amrita, the bought Amrita, was then handed over to him, to her, the Mohini Devi. Then actually it came back to whom? The Hori. Lord Hori took the form of a Mohini. So Hori received the vessel of Amrita and said with a smile, if you undertake to abide my actions, irrespective of whether you consider them right or wrong, I shall agree to divide the Amrita among you. That is, I shall agree. I am agreeing into your proposal. Not that I want it, but you are trusting on me. But one condition. What is the condition? If you undertake to abide by my actions, you have to follow what I act and what I tell you, irrespective of whether you consider them right or wrong. You may think it is wrong, but you will have to listen to me because you are trusting me and you have to be respectful for that. So I shall agree then only and then divide the Amrita among you. So first condition, you must have to abide by actions, and you did not have to put question why, what is right or wrong. Unless you have trust in me, I am not going to take this responsibility. Without realizing the implications, The Asuras agreed to the proposal of the charming maiden, actually, who is Lord Narayana, Lord Hari. As preparation for the sacred act of taking Amrita, the Asuras fasted for a day. So, before taking such wonderful nectar drinking, so they did some austerity, fasting for a day. That was the first thing. Next morning, they performed their oblations in the fire. They offered some sacrificial fire, fed all beings high and low, then received the blessings of the holy men, put on new dress and ornaments, and sat one seats of kusha grass, seats of a. So everyone is sitting on a kusha grass, doing the oblation in the fire, feeding all people in different levels, high and low, and then receive the blessings of holy men, putting new dress and ornaments. They are sitting on kusha grass arranged with blade tips directed eastward. So that is facing the east. They all sat on a kusha grass. Both the Asuras and Devas sat facing eastward. So both of them were facing eastward. In the readiness in a hall, and they entered into a hall which is decorated with lights and flowers and rendered fragrant by burning incense. So they went to a hall and they sat facing the east, and the light were there, and beautiful flowers were there, and fragrant flowers, and the flowers were burning, and burning incense were there. This divine atmosphere has been created there. Now, 17th verse. Now, Sukadev continues to describe. He said, O Parikshit, O king, into the hall now entered that handsome woman with a vase like breasts, holding the Amrita jar in hand. So that lady who they entrusted the responsibility, so now she appears as if actually Narayana in the form of that Mohini, she entered into the hall. Wearing a brilliant cloth of silk, draped the lower part of her body. Her tread was slow, and her eyes were unsteady, as if under inebriation, and the sweet sounds of her tinkling anklets announced her slow movement. So these are the description how the Mohini is entering into the hall and her beauty, etc. As the Devas and Asuras smiled and looked carefully at the female form assumed by the deity to match Sri herself, that form only like Mother Lakshmi, they were stupefied with excitement to see her face. So they are all charmed, gods and demons both, stupefied with excitement to see her face, and her face is illumined by ear ornaments and beautified by her handsome cheeks, ears, and nose, and her torso, from which the end of her clothes covering the breast had slipped down. So this is the way they are all moved by the charming Mohini. Now, it will be an unwise policy to give Amrita to and confer immortality to on the Asuras as on the cobras. It is true. If the Asuras get the Amrita, the nectar, so Narayana thought it will be you're giving poison to the cobra. That means it will create more poison because they will be ever undying. So because of their undying nature of the Amrita, if it Asuras go and had it, then it will not be good for the world. So the Lord did not distribute the Amrita among these naturally depraved asuras. So naturally, the Lord did not distribute the Amrita. The Lord made different seating arrangements. The two parties assigned to them seats in their respective rows. So two parties, they are assigned to them sit in one row and the other row. In order to hoodwink the asuras, the Lord moved about in the rows of the asuras with the Amrita vessel in hand and sweet words in his mouth, while he arranged to actually distribute the rejuvenating drink among the devas who were sitting at a distance. I do not understand this. What means that in order to hoodwink the asuras, the asuras both are singing in rows, and in order to hoodwink the asuras, the Lord moved about in the rows of the asuras. So the Mohini Devi was walking over in front of the asuras with the Amrita vessel holding in her hand and with sweet words in his mouth, while he arranged to actually distribute that rejuvenating drink, which is Amrita, among the devas who are sitting at a distance. Actually, he is moving and he is giving, but it is going to the devas. I do not understand how. But anyhow, O king, all the while the asuras sat silently. The condition was there, they will have to sit silently. So the asuras were obligated not to uh, move. So, O king, all the while the asuras sat silently, honoring their agreements not to raise any dispute. Besides, their minds were fully taken up with an infatuation for the maiden, and they also disliked to get the opprobrium of quarreling with a woman. So their lustful attachment to her was so great that they were afraid to do anything that might cause a breach in their relationship. So their respect for her was also a restraining factor. So they remained silent without making any adverse remarks. So though he is moving with a smiling face in front of the asuras, but actually he started distributing that to the gods, the devas. But one asura, his name was Swarvanu. Swarvanu means otherwise his other name is Rahu. So one asura in disguise, his name was Rahu or Swarvanu, went into the midst of the devas and kept himself disguised as one of them and drank a share of the Amrita. Now all the asuras are not getting anything, but he was actually walking to the line of the asuras, but distributing the nectar among the gods and hiding himself, though he is a asura, entered disguisingly in the midst of in the row of the devas, gods. But his identity was soon discovered. Who discovered? And revealed by sun and the moon. These are the two deities between whom he had sat. So Rahu was sitting and he looked like he is a god or deva, but he is actually Ashura. One Ashura in disguise, he took this form of Rahu, and but that was revealed. It was revealed by the uh, uh, sun god and the moon god. So what happened? At once, Hori, when he recognized that he is there, he cut off his head with his sharp discus. At the Amrita, as the Amrita has only gone up to the neck and above, and not come to the contact of the trunk, this lower portion of his body fell dead, while the head and remained immortal. That's why with the eclipse time, he enters through the mouth and after some time comes out, sun. So this head, which thus gained eternal life, was covered by the Lord into a planet, Rahu, who entertains antagonism to the moon and the sun deities for betraying him, assails them and eclipse on certain full moon and new moon days. That's why we get the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse. The sun enters into the mouth of the Rahu, but it cannot contain because lower part is not there. So it comes out on the other side, and that is the period of eclipse, moon eclipse and sun eclipse. Now, after the devas have finished drinking the Amrita, the wonderful Lord, who is the protector of the worlds, assumed his real form in view of the Asuras. So now the Mohini disappeared, and the Asuras were sitting without any share of it, and the gods got all these things. Then Narayana, then he took his own form, his real form in the view of the Asuras. Asuras saw that here is Narayana. 27 verses. Acha. Then 28 verses. In this way, though the Devas and the Daityas started on a common enterprise at the same time and place, and with the same motive, plan and objective, they got divergent results in the end. This is a very unique lesson of the Bhagavat story, that the Devas and Daityas, the holy mind, pure mind and impure mind, both can be engaged in this world. But one becomes immortal, another becomes the same old, subject to death and birth and death. Why? In this way, the Devas and the Daityas started on a common enterprise. That means churning the ocean was undertaken by Daityas and Devas. In the life also, this good and bad, it is there. But the pure mind gets eternal freedom, nectar. And with engaging in the same action, they get into bondage and ignorance. After all, that is the significance. So in this way, though the Devas and Daityas started on common enterprise, and at the same time and place, not the two places. If we see this world is samsara, and churning is going on, the holy people and unholy people both live in the same ground. But one, with the same experience, same action, one becomes liberated, one comes into bondage. Liberated means eternal, he becomes eternal. And one becomes in the cycle of birth and death, remain the same, attached to lust and greed and all this. So beautiful, beautiful the conclusion of this story. So in this way, though 28th verse, though evam surasuroganaha समोदेश काल हेतु अर्थ कर्म कर्मणो कर्म तयोपि phale vikalpa. Two results of follow is different. One is becoming eternal, performing the same action, churning the same ocean of samsara. One is getting nectar, and the same action, it is getting down to the round of births. At the same time and place, with the same motivation. All are thinking, I'll be immortal, I'll be free, I'll be ever pure, I'll be ever undying reality. Same. They got divergent results in the end. The Deva is getting the Amrita to consume, and the Asura is nothing of it. So, though working the same, apparently motive is the same, In the same ground standing, people do sadhana or becoming selfish, and they get into lastful, they get into the, then get consumed. And the asura get nothing. One gets amrita, one does not. By resignation to the Lord and devotion to Him, how did it get? That is the point. Every time the gods, they went to to Hari for their solution of the problem, and the other party didn't care for that. So by resignation, this is a beautiful teaching for all of us. By resignation to the Lord, saranagati, surrender, and devotion to Him, the Lord, the devas achieved this easily by only praying. So God took the form of the Mohini and deluded the mind, and they're so attracted into that, and they're got to this commitment that they cannot sit up unless he says anything, likes or dislikes. All these things have happened, and they remain the same asuras. Though Lord, as a Mohini, walked in front of them and were charmed. That's also the asura mind will be charmed by the worldly achievements, worldly attainments, and will be deluded. But this and suras, by only praying and surrendering to God, they achieve their immortality. Now 29, whatever service or sacrifice men perform with their life, wealth, work, mind, and words for the sake of themselves and their dear ones, all these will be in vain in the last resort, because all such efforts are directed towards entities separate from the divine. So, whatever service or sacrifice men perform with their life, whether it is performing the work one, with the wealth, with the work they do, with the mind and the words, for the sake of themselves and their dear ones, all these will be in vain in the last resort, because all such efforts are directly directed towards entities separate from the divine. So they want to live in the world minus God. That's why they go into this ignorant state. But all that becomes immensely fruitful if the service is done to Him or to others with the knowledge that those served are all the Lord's manifestation. Bah. So in our karma, in our life, this is the very beautiful part. Jat jat jujjate asubha sukarmanayo bacho vir dehatma ja jo adisu. By sukarma, good karma is done by speech, thought, and ideas. So that will make them free. All that becomes immensely fruitful. If the service is done to Him, when kriyate aprithakatva, there is Vedanta. Any work done, not doing for the person, not for the object of the anything material, but it is done for God. So that's why this last verse is very meaningful. 29 verse, 28 and 29 is the essence of all this story, that it is to be remembered. That is the purpose of this sadhana, purpose of doing any work. So it is to be done, that is done for God. That's why whenever, whatever service or sacrifice men perform with their life, men do with his wealth or work, mind and words, for the sake of themselves and their dear ones. Me, aham mama. I am doing every work for my work, my work, my wealth, my health, my mind, my pleasure, and my wife, my children, my son, my daughter, my relative, my blood relations. All these will be in vain in the last resort. That's why we find the whole world, people working whole life, relentlessly suffering and doing things, but they die at the point of death, they cry and weep because they think they have all done for himself, me and mine, me and mine. But on the contrary, all that becomes immensely fruitful. This is fruitless. Whole life's effort, work, relentless service, everything gone, only thinking me and mine. Two ideas, me and mine versus God and his children. But all that becomes immensely fruitful if the service is done to him. To whom? Him means the capital, to God. Toirevo sadbhavati. That same karma, the same engagement of the mind, same speech through which he used, deho atma jadisu. Atmaja means our own children, friend, family, etc., etc. Nri, nivi, that asat, that becomes all meaningless. And the same effort, toireva sat, it is done with the spirit. Kriyate aprithakatvat, thinking I have done it for myself as my divine self. That is, I did for God. Sarvasya tad bhavati. All those actions, mula nisheshanam, they remover of the ignorance and suffering. That's the last verse of the chapter 9. So, two things, whatever service or sacrifice people perform with their life, wealth, work, mind, and words for the sake of themselves and their and dear ones, all these will be in vain in the last resort, because all such efforts are directed towards entities that separate from the divine. So there is no touch of divinity. And if it is a touch of divine, then it becomes releasing. Very beautiful. Swami Vivekananda's Karma Yoga idea, Swamiji's idea of practical Vedanta is coming over here. There's the same action, but two different, but opposite result. One is taking to nectar and immortality and freedom. Another work is binding and getting him down and down and down. We look at the society. This philosophy has been repeated in the Upanishad, in the Bhagavatam, in all these sacred texts, but we don't learn out of that. It is that all the efforts, what for? All the fight in life, what for? All the quarrels and all the power struggle. It is only thinking that will make me happy, make me undying. But when life ends, who have done for selfish motivation and who have done for selfless motivation, the work remaining the same. One is releasing, one is freeing, and one is bringing bondage. So this last verse is very significant verse, which he ended reading now. 5, 11, 13. Okay, so this is the, let me read this 29 verse again, because it is so important. Jat jujjate, that which is connected with jujjate, sukarmam, sukarma, mano bacho vir, dehatma jo adisu, nri vi tat asat pithakatvat. When they are doing with the karma, with the mind, with speech, with whatever our organs, as he said, jat jat karomi sambho, tattadeva aradhanam. When he knows that is only he is doing for God, that's a different. But when you think that you are doing for Prithak, I am separate and my goal is separate, and to achieve my wealth, my health, my peace, my joy, and that is the path of ignorance. Toirevo, the same action, Toirevo, Sadbhavati, becomes all fruitful, meaningful, and rewarding. Jat kriyate, that work is done. Aprithakatyeno sarvasya. I am doing for God who is everywhere and who permeates everywhere, and I am serving Him only, is the Lord God. Tad bhavati mula nishechanam. That becomes free watering. It's a giving the translation, but all that becomes immensely fruitful. If the service is done to Him, Him means what? To others, with the knowledge that those served are all the Lord manifestation. Shiva Jnana Jiva Seva. Beautiful idea here. Only all that becomes immensely fruitful if the service is done to Him. Him, Him is capital, meaning God or Shiva or God, the absolute, or Saguna, Nirguna, whatever. And that to others with the knowledge that those served are whom have I served? It is Lord's manifestation. I have served God Himself. It is like pouring water at the root of a tree, which is equal to watering the whole tree. That means people are all wasting their energy in the mundane world and trying to do good to world, trying to do for the purpose of my name or my glory, my power. So these are wastage. But who is pouring water at the root of the tree, thinking the entire, not to think of anything, just thinking of the root and watering the root, he is actually serving all the leaves, all the branches, all the parts of the. So it is like pouring water at the root of a tree, which is equal to watering the whole tree. Watering the leaves and branches serves no purpose, as mulo nishechanam. So that is the philosophy of ancient wisdom. So Shiva Jnane Jiva Shiva, or everything is serving Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. In every action, every thought, every deed, what we are doing, the same thing can be done to just avoid this turmoil of life. Okay? Okay, so now this is the end of this chapter 9. As we have some few moments and no scope for any question or anything here. So we will go for the started 10th chapter a little bit. Now we understand in what has happened. The gods have got their nectar, and then all these demons or asuras, they were deprived. Naturally now see the anger, and now war between the devas and the asuras. Again, naturally they have their weak. That was the condition that they will get it. But they have done the mistake themselves. They're falling in love with that Mohini Shakti, the deluding power of the Divine Mother, and of Narayana in the form of Mohini. They got so much trust on her, and then give the responsibility to distribute the nectar. That means also in another side we can think that God comes as Mother Divine to distribute the nectar, to give immortality. If you get attached to the physical beauty of it, then you are ruined. You are deprived of immortality. But if you look R as the divine and it is Mother's grace, then that nectar makes them immortal. Life becomes meaningful. Now, Sukadev said, Iti dea danavo daiteo na vinnat amritang nipa yuktaha karmani jattascha vasudeva parang mukha. In this way, O king of Daityas and Danavas, in spite of their putting forth effort peacefully and enthusiastically, failed to achieve their object because they had no devotion to Vasudeva. Vasudeva Parangmukha. That means their heart was not turned towards Vasudeva, but heart was turned towards own ego, me and mine. Ahamiyang mamaidam iti naisargiko ayam loko vyavahara. Loko vyavahara, human loko vyavahara, um, loko vyavahara is that it is me, aham, idam, I and me. That keeps us going on in the round of birth. And it is not, oh Lord, it is thee and thine. Then it becomes releasing. Yes, that the Purana, this scripture teaches us to keep the lower propensities and desires under control. Indian spiritual tradition will always tell you to keep everything under. If you want to get a higher joy, you have to give up the lower joy. It is not loss, but it is for the higher achievement you one has to give up. That's called the renunciation. That's called the right understanding. So, though it is apparently painful to give up the lower tendencies, but it is the rewarding because it brings eternal life. So, because they have no devotion, so the Daityas and Danavas, in spite of putting forth effort, peacefully and enthusiastically, they are very enthusiastic. They work so hard, no less work than that gods did that on one side, pulling the samsara. Failed to achieve their objective because they had no devotion to Vasudeva. After churning out the Amrita, enabling the Devas, his own devotees, to consume it, the Lord departed on his eagle vehicle in the presence of all. Then see the Narayana who took the form of Mohini, she just took back his own form, and Narayana form appeared, and he then flew into the in his Narayana Vishnu Loka. Now Devas and the Daityas or Asuras, they saw this. Now seeing the prosperity of the Devas, their enemies, the son of Diti, the Asuras, become jealous beyond the point of control and went to war with them. Naturally, now the Lord left. Again, they started fighting because they have lost the game. They worked hard, but for nothing. They didn't get anything. Thereupon, all the devas were resigned to the Lord Narayana, and his strength had been augmented by taking Amrita, took up arms and put up a defense against the attack of the Asuras. So Asuras tried to attack, and the gods being taking the nectar has become immortal, and with that power took up their own swords and then started fighting. This is called the Devasura Sangram, the fight between the uh, gods and demons. It is within us. The struggle is continuing. Lower propensities versus higher propensities, doing things for our own physical senses and all this mental peace and craving for the mundane minus God and adding God, this makes the difference. So this is the struggle of life continues. Now, seeing the prosperity of the Devas, that they got all the nectar-like thing and got all the other good things, their enemies, the sun, their enemies of the Daityas, the Diti Asuras, they become jealous beyond the point of control and went to war with them. Thereupon, all the Devas were resigned to the Lord Narayana, and whose strength had been augmented by taking Amrita, took up arms and put up a defense against the attack of the Asuras. A fierce battle, tumultuous and hairs rising, took place between the Devas and the Asuras on the shore of the ocean. So where they did this big churning, the ocean of the ocean of samsara, no? In the ocean of samsara, the good and bad fight, continuous and fearful fight. That's a spiritual life called sometimes it's called the dark night of the soul. It's a fierce fight. That time hold on to the truth and to spirituality has become sometimes difficult. But this is the in personal life, and this is the Puranic story depicting the enemy and which is holy inside, how they fight. So the ranks of the two enemies closed together in battle, and the warriors struck fiercely at one another with sword, arrows, and various other kinds of weapons. The sound of martial music with instruments like conch shell, trumpets, mridangas, drums, and damarus, augmented by the roar of the regiments of elephants and horses and chariots and foot soldiers, all together produced a very terrific din. So the war started, a huge war started, and everyone was overwhelmed.
One question.
I have answered that.
One question.
I have answered that. So this war went into a huge war. In the battle, chariots closed on chariots, elephants on elephants, horses on horses, and infantry on infantry. They fought sitting on various kinds of vehicles and mounts, some on camels, some on elephants, some on donkeys, some on goats, some on bears, some on tigers, some on lions. So big war. And some others on the vultures and herons and cranes and falcons. Still other rode on whales and servers and buffaloes and rhinoceros, oxen and gabyos and arunas, etc. Still others were riding in a jackal, rats, chameleons and hares and men and goat, etc., etc. Both sides closed up on the battlefront, those described above, and several others sitting on various kinds of birds living on the land and water, unknown creatures shaped by the various curious ways. In the battlefield was picturesque with clean and white royal umbrellas, banners, and various day designs, ceremonies, fans, and peacocks, and feathers, and fly whiskey, etc. It was impressive all by such features as the fluttering clothes of the turbans of the warriors exposed to the wind, the luster of all armors, ornaments, and the sheen of the weapons in the brilliant sun. O son of Pandu, Parikshit, the two armies of the Devas and Asuras looked like two oceans with rows and rows of aquatic creatures arrayed in the confrontation. So big confrontation started between them two. So we end here. That is the 10th chapter, 15th verse we end. And we'll see one question has come. We can try to answer that. How does Bhagavat Purana teach one to keep the lower propensities and desire under control? Just we read this response, last verse of the chapter 9, uh, uh, chapter 9, that verse number 29, he said, the same work we do. It's a very best and very practical religion. So the same work if one does for the selfish and my joy, my pleasure, my son, my daughter, my family, my friends, and another person serving everything, doing just for God, 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 God. Work remaining the same. The result is so different. One leads to freedom, another brings to bondage. So that is the main teaching. And way is the Shiva Jnana Jiva Seva, or you do everything Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Whatever we do, we are offering our salutation and offering and love to Krishna. Whatever work, jat jat karumi, whatever karma we do by action, by hand, feet, etc., etc., I offer everything to you, O Lord, O Lord, O Lord, O Lord. So that is the very important point, how we can practice this philosophy of what Ramakrishna has given in this particular age. There's a unique expression that work done with proper spirit, one can be liberated from all bondage. So, as you have asked, the niskama karma, in one sense, we can say Niskama concept, karma. And Mohini did give chance to the Asuras, but they, under delusion and attachment, could not use the judgment. Right? We all lose our judgment when immediate sense enjoyment of same attachment comes. We forget our justification. We forget our what's called discernment, the capacity of discernment. See, Hori in the form of Mohini did give chance to Asuras, but they under delusion and attachment could not use the judgment. So, yes, so is also the showing that God tries to be just, but men fail. Yeah, very correct. Because we cannot judge, because we have not pure mind, and we have not purified our life by service, selfless service. That's why Ramakrishna came in this age, and Ramakrishna mission works on this philosophy. Serve God in man. The very fundamental point. You meditate or do something, that is your thing. But that will, for practical life, we must have to give up our other all thoughts. Whatever we are doing, at the end of the day, we should say, uh, Tasmatam Saranangacha Sarvabhavena Bharata, Bhagavad Gita says. Sarvabhave Bhagavan Seva. Saran and take refuge. So we have to think that we are serving God in man. A very, very fundamental thing of the Ramakrishna movement. So that is the way out, and that is the message given in the Puranic. These are called Puranas, as if it is some stories. No, it is not story. There are truth, and the principle is this: that work done, just in the verse number 29 we read, that it will even ito jajjajjate, that work which is been added by karma, mind, and bakko, and work done by speech, mind, and etc. Now, if it is dedicated to a deho, for my own body and my own pleasure and my own friends and relatives, that and it is not, no chance of God is there, and all can be separated. I need my money, as there are many rich people in the world of today. They have no place to keep their money anywhere. But these people don't pay any attention to. There's so much suffering in the world. So what they throw away, that much money for useless things, that a part of that would have saved the world. So they are thinking nothing of them but themselves. But he said, Toirevo sadbhavati. That those actions are these becomes meaningful, truthful. Jakriyate, apithakatvat. I am serving Narayana, no prithak. It is the man is not separate from God. I am serving the man, the woman, the friend, my own mother, my father, my children, my son, my husband, my wife. It is not husband wife. I am serving Krishna, 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 Rama Krishna, Rama Krishna, Rama Krishna, Christ, Christ, Christ. Whatever the spiritual idea, that will be a wonderful idea of releasing us from bondage. And that is the message of Sri Ramakrishna specifically in this age. Thank you all. So we end here, and next class will be at 7:30 on the Seta Upanishad. We are just trying to revise it. Thank you all for coming again. Mother bless you. God bless you.